Greetings, ladies and the players. I'm Dwyrin, and welcome back to another one of my shorties. You all seem to enjoy bringing this series back, and boy, do I have a topic for you this week. Topic for us this week is going to be influence. Cause let's face it, whether you are a person who is finding your opponent constantly going into your 3-3 point and you wind up a lot of influence, or maybe you're on the other side of that where you yourself are invading your opponent's 3-3 and you're giving them a lot of influence. Weirdly enough, in this day of hyper-aggressive territory, it seems that finding out how to deal with influence or how to go against influence is really a huge factor in a lot of our games today. So we're taking a look at it right now. Starting with, as you can see over on left, a game I played against an 8Q. We're also going to see games I played against Don level players on both sides of the spectrum, dealing with how to use and how not to use and go against influence. So here we have a game where I was white against an 8Q opponent, and as you can see, he immediately hit my 3-3, as is all the rage. What did I do then? I just played the standard Joseki sequence that you see in the upper right, the old school, frowned upon one because it keeps things nice and simple. It uncomplicates all of the Joseki in that area, in my opinion, and I'm fine with the wall that we are getting in exchange. 9 times out of 10, either at 8Q or at 5 and 6 Don, whatever, the most common response you're going to see next is this one right here. And that's where I want to immediately start the conversation, because it seems like there is only one option for your next move. That is inherently not true. You can also, if you are playing as black and invading, you can also ensure that you pick up more points. You just took some away from your opponent, you pick up more for yourself. That is a pretty strong way to begin reducing the influence, because it allows, or it takes away, some of your opponent's ability to expand their influence later. You don't have to worry so much about them getting something like this, because if you know your sequence as well, you know this is invadable, and we can just keep playing for territory like we wish to do. Now, if you're white in this position, you also have your options. More on that later. Game continues. I've been pushing away for a very simple reason. Simple reason number one, if we can assume our opponent is going to get, generally at best, 10 points of territory, then we need to get, as white, very few amounts of points with this wall to equal that. So it's not the end of the world. We don't have to freak out that he took the star point away from us. If you're seeing this in your games, you can just keep making things for yourself as well, because look, very easy to make the points that he just took. So, it's no big deal. The attempt to settle, I like to throw in because I can go under or out. It's absolutely fine. He goes into my corner again. So we kind of have this idea that, excellent, what we're going to do now is, as black, take away all the corners, live in the middle, we win the game, right? Not quite so much. Again, this stone is weak. A weak stone is worth infinity points. So what black just did here is black gave a person a lot of strength and a lot of strength to attack a weak group. This can be very deadly for you, especially if you gave it to someone who's pretty good at attacking. Black got greedy. White does not get greedy, and I just try to build. Why do I just try to build? It goes back to what we literally just said. If I'm getting these points on in here, I'm just going to round up to 20 to make it even. And I've Comey, so 26. And then we've got here, and here. So now we're at 31. If we can get this too, now we're at 33. Where does black have 33 points? Well, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the top left. There's 10, that's 18. Has to come from the other two corners. But white is now expanding and attacking. So we're in a lot of trouble here. Just keep expanding. Black said, no, you can't do that either. And long story short, that means he's a dead man. He saw my influence. He kept trying to remove all of my influence. Every time I tried to make influence, not minding his own groups, and then he just died. That's one way that I keep seeing people die over and over and over and over and over again. But they don't have the basics to back it up. They're still leaving weak groups. They're not finding the biggest points. So after those two decisions are made, steal corner, they go splat. Now, in the actual game, because we were playing this on stream, I did let him live. This was killable. I let it live intentionally just to show, like you usually do in basics, you don't have to kill to win. Why? Because he's worried about dying here, so I get to keep building off my influence. That is important point number 2. I can always threaten to keep expanding what he's afraid of, which is my influence getting too large. So I keep threatening to expand it. He keeps responding, as you see here. He keeps responding to it, right? Over and over and over again. Very much afraid of me getting anything, but he's not making any new points. And as longer as he makes no new points, the more I get to use my influence. Now you might say, if you don't kill anything, you can never win a game like this. And that in and of itself is also not true, because his corner's completely surrounded, his corner's completely surrounded, his group's surrounded, over and over and over again. Surround. So as long as you don't play a slow move, what wound up happening here is quite simple. I just kept surrounding things, and at that point, I did finally make more territory than he could actually get away with. To be fair, he should have been dead all over the place, because he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different groups on the board. That's a little bit too many. But even in this situation, not having to kill anything went very, very, very well. How did it happen? Simple. We saw influence. We kept trying to expand our influence. He kept trying to reduce our influence. He got no new points from that. So we just kind of repeated. We either expand or we reduce his expansion. So then he has tiny groups being surrounded all over the place with very few stones, very few points. You just can't win the game that way. Let's look at another one. So this time we played against a Fox 1 Don. As you can see over there, I was white again, and we had a very interesting game because our opponent opens up with a large knight, denoting that he wants to develop influence. Interesting. Let's see how that works out for him. Couple moves advances, we get to a point where he's trying to grow a very, very fast framework or some kind of development with his stones, as you would expect from some influential play. So far, so good. My pincer falls under attack. He's trying to connect up underneath. Okay, sure, why not? Then he decides to just live. By just choosing to live, I get an enormous wall in Sente from him deciding he wanted to live on the second line and not, for example, do something immensely more simple and easy and obvious and separate to attack. To use the influence to separate and attack. I'm going to say that again. To use the influence to separate and attack. Probably going to be doing some surrounding there too. What you really want to do with influence. Instead, despite playing an influential game, went into the corner probably on autopilot because Joseki is very, very common nowadays. But then, sadly, his face was pushed onto that second line, and then I get to do an easy little expansion here. Could have done a much larger expansion, but as basics, we played a very, very simple thing. What did he do after that? He freaked out instantly freaked out, and tried to reduce all of my influence point blank against the wall. This, and I can't emphasize this enough, is a huge, huge no-no. If you want to use influence and reduce something like this, what you're looking for most likely is sector lines. Those things are important. We've been harping on them on our basic series forever. You'll want to listen to them here too. And maybe just do something simple like try to roll this back and grow at the same time. That would be pretty cool. What you do not want to do is say, I don't think influence is worth anything. I'm going to get rid of all of it right now. Rar, 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 rar. That is what you don't want to do. Attempt number 2 for him, sure enough. He is going to try and go back to sector line. That's great. I love it. And what I'm not going to do is fall into the habit of just taking that reduction and allowing him to build on the outside. Very, very common mistake. Instead, we're going to ignore it and we're going to do other things. In this case, I got to expand and take away some of his corner. He comes in again, sad face, and then he dies. Why? Because over and over again, there's this common trend here of when facing influence to do too much, trying to get rid of all of it. You're overstepping. You want to make sure they have no points, no development with all those stones that they just played, because apparently for some reason your opponent's stones don't have value, but I'm sure yours do. No, you don't want to do that. So if you see someone doing that, just divide and conquer. If you see them reducing you too early, just take extra larger points, whether it's an invasion, whether it's an expansion elsewhere, etc., etc., etc. Focus on those. Do not ever get caught up in over-concentrating yourself with these moves to ensure that you always have something there because you're terrified of having nothing. Your strength does not vanish in 1 or 2 moves. Trust me, Go doesn't work that way. Instead, as we can see here, he kept throwing himself at my influence over and over and over again, just strengthening me over and over and over again until all of his stones here and here and here just wound up getting killed over and over and over again. Respect the influence or it'll kill you. Last game I have for you is this one, because on this day, not only did we have people trying to give us a lot of influence and then mishandling it, I flipped things around and I gave my opponents a lot of influence to see if maybe they could use it a lot better. It was a very, very interesting day on stream. Twitch.tv/BatsGo. Started off with me taking double 4-4 point. He did too. I was so happy. I got to do exactly what I wanted to do and smash that 3-3, intentionally giving him influence. As you can see here, he was a man after my own heart. He actually played the old school Joseki. I was a complete fan of it. But note, like I said in the first game, I then took Sente not to freak out about this. He can develop, okay? That's a thing that can happen. But I wanted to make sure I had more points. I took some away from him, and then I got some for myself. I'm not just going to play the entire game trying to like take more and take more and take more and take more. No, that is not how the game is played. We're going to take a little and get a little. Take a little and get a little. There's balance. Now, he played a really weird, bizarre Joseki up here. That's not really Joseki, but that doesn't really matter because I, with Sente, took another enclosure. He took away from me. I took some for myself. He went into the Sanrense. I hit the 3-3 again, giving him a nice, enormous wall. Now, there are a couple of ways with how you use influence. One way is when your opponent goes in to do a reduction, you counter that by expanding. That way there's this area they're trying to reduce, and then this other area decided to grow. So are they also going to try to reduce that one? Because then they've got 2 groups that are need to be kept in touch with, right? Kind of gets tricky for them. I came in and decided to play in here because you can live with this. You can. I wish I could say that it doesn't live, but it does. I'm sorry, that's just how Go works right now. Now, remember, what you want to do is try to attack for profit. Because remember, in the game against the 8Q, and it could be done at any level, it's hard to kill a group. You're going to need to attack for profit. He immediately hit me. I immediately went into shape, and then he's immediately going to try to just sandwich me here and try to kill me over and over and over again. The problem is when that failed, and it's going to fail, because I'm already alive, you can see that his group was under attack. But you might say, well, it's fine. He has this area. And to that, I would say, no, he actually doesn't. And even if he did, it wouldn't matter. This is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8, 16, 24 right here in this little section. Maybe a little bit larger if he keeps it all. If he keeps it all. More on that later. What he should have done is either just continue to expand, or maybe even just cap me, building a new wall facing the middle, because you're planning that future expansion. So if we played something like this, for example, he's making territory, I'll live. This is fine. I'm going to get out and live. That is A-okay. I'm going to get out and live. And then he can keep expanding his area of influence. And I still have a weak group that he could try to attack later. Lots of really good things going on in here. Or he can play it very severe and just say, okay, it'll live that way. I don't really like it because I think it's putting too much pressure on here. But even the clean surround on this side might not be bad. Instead, he insisted on trying to kill me, putting me right up against that wall, not connecting, and then getting in trouble, which allowed me to Hane at the head of 2 and 3 stones like I do here. And again, and then I can push and attempt it again. I connect, he defends, there's still a hole here that I can poke. What does he do? He defends it again too early. Remember the whole expansion thing? Yeah, he needs to not do this. Maybe go over in here, maybe see what can be done over in here. Just something, anything, I don't care. But you can see here how he's being forced to defend, and then suddenly I have a large area again. And now this is simply not worth it. End of story. Some extra defense for his stuff, understandable, but at this point we're just poking and expanding, and if we look at the score estimator, which you can't, I'm already 20 points up. How? He didn't try to surround me, he tried to aggressively kill me, which hurt his own group. Then I was able to get him to commit to his own area, and by getting him to commit to that area, suddenly I have the surround on him, and now we're in Bizarro world, where, like, I'm the one getting the center influence. It did a complete 180. So that is a nice, clear example of how you can try and do the early invasion stuff, even on an extreme level, and the do's and don'ts of how to handle that. So those are some ideas on how both to handle influence as well as how to go against influence. I hope no matter which part of the spectrum you're on, either the person diving into the 3-3 and giving away the influence or someone who's getting it constantly stolen and given to you, you have a couple of better ideas on how you can either use influence or take it away. Do's and don'ts for both sides. As always, I hope you're enjoying the series, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.